part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Spoiler alert, when this podcast talks about the books of His Dark Materials, it does so in the context of the most recent book. And when it talks about the television show on the BBC and HBO, it does so in the context of the most recent episode. You've been warned.
You're listening to The Dust, a His Dark Materials podcast.
Still your 25th favorite podcast covering His Dark Materials out of 15 podcasts that actually cover the show. That's still not good math, but it's better math than last week. Welcome to the Dust Podcast, where this time around we are covering Series 2, Episode 3, entitled Theft, the episode written by Jack Thorne and Sarah Quintrell, and directed by Lin-Manuel, or Wellham. I'm not sure how to butcher that properly, but I will butcher it both ways. Here's your brief synopsis. Lyra ignores the alethiometer's advice, leading to dangerous consequences. Boy, that just really kind of undersells the episode completely. My name is Double M.
Double M.
You can call me Matt Murdock instead if you wish. That's what the Double M stands for. And I am always joined in these first look episodes by a person who is always willing to go on adventures, but she makes sure to leave a note so that you can find it. It's Holly.
Always leave a note. Oh my God. Hey, how is everybody doing? I love this episode. This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole entire series.
Excellent. Well, then we've got a lot to talk about as far as this episode goes. Lots of surprises in this episode for me. There were lots of things I didn't expect, and I can't wait to hear what your rating of this episode was, Holly.
I'm going to give this episode 9 out of 10 double C's.
Double C's?
Crashing caves.
Crashing caves? Wow.
Yeah, the cave kind of went a little crazy there after the I Ching scene. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, this episode was my favorite so far, maybe, of the entire series.
Wow, that's excellent. But, okay, so it's your favorite of the entire series, and it still only gets a 9, huh?
Yeah, there's room to grow.
There's room to grow. Excellent. You know, I really love this episode too. But last week I went so high, I thought maybe I better look at things a little more critically, and I pulled back my rating this week. I only gave it 9.3 out of 10 double H's.
Double H's?
Hester harassments.
Oh, poor Hester.
I think that I actually love the off-book stuff even more than the book stuff in this particular episode for myself. And I really just shaved a couple of tenths of points just for the reasons that I felt the whole Boreal reveal was just a little wanky. And as far as Will and Lyra were concerned. And I didn't really appreciate, I know we love York, but I just didn't really appreciate the fact that Kaisa and York were talking to each other in that way, seemingly just for the purpose of getting the information that Lyra was in another world to the witches. That's what that really seemed to be, as well as bringing up the effect of Azrael's doorway. I mean, it did have its purpose. It just felt like that maybe they were trying to get York into the episode a little faster than they had to.
I would tend to agree with you. And we can get into it more when we get to that part of the episode, but I'm never going to be mad about seeing York on screen. And he looked great. The CGI was so good for York. I was like, man, he just looked incredible.
Yeah.
And
the bear was one of the things that I was really worried about for this series when we first started podcasting back on Series 1. I was really like, oh boy, I don't know about, can they do bears? And turns out that York is probably as realistic as any of the humans on there to me.
I was watching his fur the whole time, and it looked so soft. I wanted to touch it. Even though you don't touch polar bears, guys, they will eat your hand.
Yes.
And your face.
Yeah. So those were the only two things that I really had to comment on. And we've given our ratings. We always like to give our ratings up front, but we also want to know what you thought of this episode. How do you do that, you ask? Well, thank you for asking. You tweet at The Dust Podcast on Twitter. You send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave voicemails by calling 314-269-0421. That's the way you reach us. And remember that we are part of the Double P family of podcasts. That's why we use a lot of doubles in this podcast. Me, kind of to the point where it makes you want to vomit. But Holly uses them more selectively and usually quite well. That's the way most of those Double P podcasts go. You can find all of the podcasts, including one covering The Mandalorian on Disney+. It's entitled Parsec Passion. You must find that podcast because I also do musical analysis on that particular podcast, and I'm very happy to do so. And they have a whole bunch of podcasts that they cover different franchises on, so be sure to tweet to @double, the letters PHQ, or you can even find them on Facebook if you still use Facebook. I kind of stopped. But facebook.com/double, the letters PHQ. You can also find our First Look podcasts on their YouTube channel as well. Just go to YouTube and search for Double P Media, the word double, the letter P Media. And if you want to cheat for that, just go to youtube.com/user/fit and trim, FITTENTRIM. Listen to her mouthing that quietly as we go along. That's totally making the podcast. One other thing about this particular podcast, the one-stop shop for everything that I do, save the Double P stuff because they own that. But you can find anything that I am the regular host on at mattsaudioblog.com. That's MATTS audioblog, all one word, .com. You can also find the podcast app links for this podcast, The Dust, there as well. So that if you don't know where to find us, we've got links up for the RSS feed, for the Apple Podcasts, for wherever we're at. I think we're on Pandora as well. But what we want you to do is follow those links, and wherever you can, leave a written review. We want you to subscribe to this podcast. We want you to rate it with stars. But most importantly, we want you to leave a written review where you can. We understand that you can't at all of those places. So if you have an Apple Podcast ID, go ahead and leave us a written review there, even if you don't get your podcasts there regularly. Why do you want to do that? Because that will enter you into a contest to win cool His Dark Material merchandise. And if you've already left a written review, don't worry. We've already got you covered. Angie R., Candid59, Bob Shimoto, Yup OK, One Dart, and some guy also named Fit and Trim, who I've never heard of. But you're already entered to give a chance to win. You don't have to leave a new review. But if you listen to us on an app that doesn't have a place that can leave written reviews and you refuse to go to Apple Podcasts and make an ID, I can get that. We've already got our IDs out there in the world too much. I can speak from personal experience on that recently. But if you don't want to do that, then the only way to enter the contest otherwise is to help play the game that Holly hates, describing the episode in 3 words. You can just send us a 3-word description of any episode that you watch, and that automatically enters you into the contest. Again, you tweet at The Dust Podcast on Twitter, or you can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com, or you can just leave a voicemail saying your 3-word description. They can be that short. And we're not exactly sure what His Dark Materials merchandise is going to be available to us by the end of this season. But after the season is over, whatever is available, we'll choose between. I mean, I've heard that Funko may be making some His Dark Material Funkos soon. I've also know that Mr. Balf, who was very nice to us in regards to giving us a peek at this, but he gave us a peek at the Season 2 musical anthology, which was released on November 8th. And we might offer that up as a prize, a copy of that for you. Since this podcast, I make all about music whenever I can. Or maybe we'll just give you the whole series too in whatever format you desire, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever it comes in that you like. Maybe we'll give you Holly's personal Double P collection.
I'm sorry, what?
That's the Philip Pullman collection of books. Maybe Holly will just send you those.
No, I'm sorry, what? My books?
That's not going to happen, huh?
yellowed page books that they're getting worn. Covers are starting to fall off.
But they were
No.
held by you, the book expert on this podcast.
Yeah, there you can find more worthy books out there.
Well, if you're not into that kind of value-added thing, we will find something that is value-added for your participation in either submitting 3 words or leaving us a written review. And that is the end of all of the pluggings, except for we will also read your reviews at the beginning of the podcast and then get into the material. Speaking of those reviews, Alexandra Tintin Fan UK, and maybe that was Tintin Fanny. I'd love it if it was supposed to be like that, but I'm not going to superimpose that. But in the UK iTunes store or the UK Apple Podcast store, gave us a 5-star review entitled "His Dark Materials by the Ear." I love this podcast. Matt is an endearing host with a skill for not merely hearing, contextualizing, and performing the musical aspect of His Dark Materials, but making a tin-eared neophyte like me understand the story in a whole new way. Approaching characters and narrative through the subtle interplay of timbre, harmonies, motives, themes, and meters, Matt is enriching my experience of watching the TV series, but I also bring his musical insights with me when I return to the books. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Alexandra, for that wonderful review. I'm glad that it's just me talking about music, but I'm glad that you bring Mr. Balf's music into the context of those books, because when we talked in our interview, he definitely is a great lover of the books, and so he has those books in mind when he writes music for this television show. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
It sounds like Alexandra just skips ahead to your music section, so I'm happy for you, Matt.
Oh, maybe she sticks around for your yellow-paged book analysis at the end also.
I don't know why. I'm sorry.
Of course we know why, because it's excellent. That's why.
It's fine.
Something that's not excellent so much for the BBC or HBO this year have been the ratings for the television series. This, according to TVSeriesFinale.com, comes in with the ratings in regards to HBO's debut a couple of weeks ago, saying that the second season of His Dark Materials averages a 0.06 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic and only 227,000 viewers on HBO, compared to season 1 that's down by 40% in the demo and 46% in the viewership. And also, TVSeriesFinale.com keeps track of whether the series has been renewed or not, and it has not officially been renewed or canceled by BBC or HBO. Given this year of the pandemic, I don't think anything's getting greenlit for another new season right off the bat. I think that everything is kind of a wait and see. However, Production Weekly had reported that there is work going on for season 3, despite nothing official, no official decisions being made, like the writing of the new episodes, probably some design and that kind of thing. So the only hesitancy that I have about this, Holly, is Catfish and I covered a series called Penny Dreadful City of Angels on Showtime last spring. And people were, the ratings were going down and down and down. Despite that, the production company had gone ahead and started to build new sets for a season 2. Then the show got canceled by Showtime about 2 months after the finale had aired. Then it got canceled. So they had already had to start working on season 2, and then ploop, away it went. All I'm saying is, despite everybody working on this thing already, it's always up to the BBC and HBO, and I really can't see them not renewing it. It's too good to not be renewed, as long as they know that they have a dedicated audience. I just worry about those numbers.
Yeah, way to bring me down at the very beginning of this podcast. Now I'm thinking about the possibility of no season 3. We just need one more season after this, so just give it to us. We want it.
Yeah,
we're here.
Yeah. As far as the BBC goes, it opened on Sunday, November 8th, and its viewership, let's see, 5.5 million, which was 23% of the TV share. 1.2 million recorded it and watched it on TV after 7 days, and another 87,000 watched it on non-TV devices. So that was a total of 5.64 million. Unfortunately, that also is the lowest rating of all as far as the BBC goes. So maybe it's just the year, you know? I mean, maybe, and I'm sure that these companies will take into account some of that as well.
That definitely makes sense for HBO since, that's a paid subscription service here in the US. And I can understand why people may have had to cancel a lot of their subscriptions over the last year. But I mean, BBC is for everyone, right?
And that's compared to their November of 2019 when Series 1 debuted. They had 9.4 million or 36% share of the television audience. And another 304,000 devices took it to 9.7 million after 7 days.
Okay, so, I mean, we're in a pandemic. Everybody should be home and watching this show. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yes. If you're home anyway because of the pandemic, why not simply turn the show on and watch it?
Yeah. Put a mask on just to be extra safe in your home. Put a mask on and watch the show.
But don't try to put a mask on Yorick. He's not going to let that happen.
No, don't do it.
You ready to get in this episode, Holly, now that I've brought everybody down to a nice, calm level with all of that bad news?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's pick ourselves back up again. We start with Serafina. She's surveying the destruction to the islands, and in a voiceover, she addresses her fellow witches saying that they will have their revenge, but that finding Lyra is of the utmost importance right now. She must be found before anyone else finds her. And the anyone else would naturally be Mrs. Coulter, as we cut to a shot of her taking another Zeppelin trip. She's not back in black, but she's in the double R.
Double R?
Red Returns. Let me tell you something, Holly. Last week, I don't even remember which section it was, but I definitely told you, I said, oh no, those witches are going to fight those Zeppelins right now. Boy, was I wrong. I had seen some of those shots in the trailer and thought that, they has to be in the follow-up episode. Nope, no way. Nope, those witches are just going to put their heads down and say, where's Lyra, where's Lyra, where's Lyra? And I think in the trailer review, I had said that the area that they were surveying was snow. I just thought, they're witches of the north, it's snow. No, I often get ash and snow mixed up, although I didn't for Game of Thrones. Everybody else told me it was ash, and I knew that it was snow in Daenerys' vision. But this one I got completely backwards. It was not snow. It was ash laying all over the ground. My heart broke for that destruction. Holly, you have any thoughts about this first scene?
Not really. It was just kind of like, hey, this is what happened next after they got bombed. I'm curious to see how the witches are gonna make the Magisterium pay for this, but I actually liked the way Kaisa says it better in the future scene with Yorick versus this scene. Yeah,
why don't we talk about that right now?
Okay.
Because in the north, just kind of linking all of the witches stuff together to get it kind of out of the way, Yorick is in the north, but he's heading south, it would seem. We see him for the first time this season. Kaisa, who is Serafina's demon, comes for a visit, and Yorick tells Kaisa that Azrael's hole in the sky, as he calls it, has damaged everything too much, and that he and his bears will starve if they stay where they are. And Kaisa compares problem size, let's just say that, by talking about what the Magisterium did to the witches, but also adding that the witches must find Lyra. She is destined in destiny and restore free will, not just to their world, but to all other worlds as well, or worlds beyond. And Lyra has to fulfill her mission in ignorance. Yorick lets Kaisa know that Lyra had crossed through the window based on his tracking. And Kaisa thanks him and lets Yorick know that, the witches don't really need you. We're going to find our own justice for the Magisterium deeds. So that's all linked together. A lot of repeating of things that we already knew in this scene, I think, is one of the things that turned me off about it.
Yeah, same. And I think initially I thought they were talking about the prophecy in the first scene too when I made this note, but I really don't think I don't know. I didn't really think we needed that monologue so much in the opening scene of this episode. And I liked Kaisa saying, "We will find our own justice for that." That was much more of a chilling threat than how Serafina came across in the first scene. I don't know. It just made me like Kaisa more than I ever liked Kaisa, period.
Was he vowing revenge pretentiously, Holly?
No, that
maybe that's why.
no, actually, or if he was, I liked this form of pretentiousness. It was just I don't know. It was I was scared of Kaisa for a second there. I was like, oh man, what does that mean? I can't wait. I can't wait for them to do this. Yes, Lyra's important now, but now I really want to know what they're going to do to get revenge on the Magisterium. And I'm now excited about it. So
yeah, maybe Rudiscotti's demon's been talking to Kaisa more. Because Rudiscotti's demons seem pretty mad about everything too,
right.
in the earlier episodes. So maybe that's exactly what's going on there. Kaisa's getting swayed.
I think so. And even though it was a little bit redundant compared to the first episode of this season and last season where they're talking about the prophecy, I felt just this was a more organic way of bringing up the prophecy with one character talking to another character about it versus a narration to the audience. So I liked that. And like I said earlier, Yorick just looked incredible, and I'm not mad about it. And I know you said you didn't think this was, I think you mentioned that this part was okay, but that's some serious climate change happening. How many days would you guess have passed since Asriel tore the worlds open?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So if we're seeing Yorick like in the north, then he's traveling south, but if what we're seeing, his surroundings, or what has happened because the world opened, that is some real bad climate change coming real fast. And the whole, ecologically speaking, impact of that is huge, you know? How many ecosystems have been affected by that in their world?
I mentioned in our book section last week about how that flyer that Lyra picked up to lead her to the Pitt Rivers Museum, how that seemed very parallel to what we knew was going to be happening in this world, in Lyra's world. So
yeah, I like we're watching the same climate change happen, but very slowly. Well, not that slowly, but you know, a lot more slowly compared to what is happening in Lyra's world now.
If Serafina already knows that Lyra's behind, boy, I'm spending a lot of time talking about this, but if Serafina already knows that Lyra's kind of like behind a veil, does she really? I guess they need this information, but you would think that the witches do so many other things where it just seems like suddenly they know what's going on. Using this scene to find out the information that Lyra did indeed pass between the worlds, just seemed like to me an opportunity for a double C.
A double C?
A cuteness consideration in bringing Yorick into the episode.
Yeah, maybe. And I kind of see your point with your issues with it, but I just didn't feel the same way at all. And I guess
you were too busy looking at Yorick's fur.
It's true. I wanted to pet it. But no, I think it was more about kind of showing the effects of what Asriel did, reminding us again that there's a prophecy, and yeah, also maybe kind of, even if they had an idea that Lyra maybe went through into the new world, Yorick just confirmed it for them. So narrows down, not really, I guess. It really opens it up with where they need to search for her. But, you know, at least they know where to start looking. Stop looking in your world and start looking in these other worlds for her.
Well, speaking of looking for Lyra, Pan and Lyra are back in Tsutsukaze, and they are having a discussion. And Pan is arguing that they should stay with Will and do what the alethiometer says. And Lyra is arguing that she needs to keep her promise to Double M.
Double M.
Mary Malone.
Oh.
And a flick of a little double W.
A double W?
Yeah, washing water.
Oh.
That settles the argument in favor of Lyra, despite Pan continuing to try and make the point that it doesn't really seem to matter to Will at all because he's still asleep. So Lyra just rudely shuts the bag down on Pan to end the conversation. She leaves her a Dear Will letter, explaining how she's chosen Mary Malone over him, or maybe she's chosen Roger over him because finding out dust is more important. And she makes her way to the window opening to Will's Oxford and steps through. I mean, Pan, he keeps arguing caution after being flicked with water and closed in a bag. Maybe a certain someone, is that a double S? A certain someone? Maybe not. But maybe a certain someone, Lyra, ought to listen to Pan once in a while.
You might be right. I enjoyed the scene. The comedy of Lyra inaudibly telling Pan to zip it really worked for me.
Yeah. I thought it was cute too. I loved it.
Poor Pan.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I said it in the first episode. Pan's kind of the one being the most adult of the three of them, using logic and reason, your favorite things, to try to, keep Lyra on track of what's important. And Lyra's like, nah, but Mary's cool. I want to go see Mary. I told her I would. So
Yeah, it's a debate to have. But I also love going back to some feedback that we got from Dragonfell UK on Twitter. That's Jonathan. In response to the episode 1 of this season, Dragonfell UK had said that Jack Thorne had said that the kitchen boy reference made in the first episode might also be an allusion to something else less obvious. So was it because Lyra placed the note near the kitchen? Is that why Will didn't see it? Because she just thought, oh, he's a kitchen boy. That's the first place he'll go when he wakes up?
Yeah, maybe she just put it by the omelet ingredients and thought he would find it there. I don't know. But he wasn't hungry, when he woke up.
Exactly. Just remember, Lyra, from now on, that kitchen boys don't necessarily go to the kitchen first. They got to go to the bathroom just like the rest of us. So we then get to the credits after she steps through the window there. And looky there. The person that Holly has been waiting for all season, his name finally shows up in the main title sequence at the front. Andrew Scott. His name goes right under the Dustplosion, which is the spot that always ends up right after Ruth Wilson is announced. You have Daphne and Amir announced simultaneously. Then you always have Ruth Wilson whenever she's in an episode, or maybe even when she won't be. Who knows? But then you get different people. In the first step, it was the actress who plays Serafina, Ruta Garmentres. In the second one, it was the actor who plays Boreal. And this time around, it's Andrew Scott, who plays Will Perry. There's a man in a hood, but he's got this ring that he holds, and he says he's summoning Lee Scoresby to return. That's what all that sounded like to me as it kept echoing and getting more distorted.
That was really really good.
That was really good?
Yeah.
To me, that was just flat disturbing. I didn't...
no, I meant your impression just now. That was really good.
Well, of course. That's what I do. But that whole double R thing, repeating returns, makes the wind start kicking in. And Lee Scoresby's balloon, it starts headed speedily towards somewhere, which wakes Hester up. She wakes Lee up. And they see a town and a river below. And Hester calls it the Yenisei, or calls it Yenisei. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Yenisei is a river in Russia. So, and you do see a river there. So that's where they are in Lyra's world, the Yenisei. But Lee speculates that the town looks like a good place where Grumman might end up. It's his third such speculation, according to Hester, who's kind of like, oh, we're going to land in another place. Oh, boy. The thing that I keep asking is, why must Lee return? And is this even the first time that Grumman has done this summoning? Because who put the thought about Grumman in Lee's head in the first place, Holly?
I don't know. It's unclear. I keep forgetting to go back and watch season 1 and see if his name... I know his name definitely comes up in season 1, but if it comes up to Lee, why Lee knows he needs to go find him, I cannot remember.
Hey, I'm lazy too. But the thing is that you really do have to do some work on this episode. I mean, you got to do a lot of work to get here. But you have this guy summoning Lee, and then you find out later the guy that he's looking for, Grumman, went further up the river to become a shaman. And the way this guy is acting is kind of like a shaman. So it's a whole lot to put together. And Yeah, I didn't go back last week and watch the first season either to see if I could figure out how Lee even figured it out. Now I'm just thinking that maybe Lee was summoned by this guy in the first place, and that's the only reason that he's trying to search for Grumman.
Ugh.
Will is having a dream about a certain someone, his dad. He's having a dream about the letters. There's some imagery from his vision that he had at the end of the first episode as well, and him walking through the streets of Sitagaze. He sees his mom, all kinds of things in these dreams. But he wakes up and he decides to pull out those letters and reread them. And it seems like he's discovered something by reading them. And he calls Lyra about using the alethiometer to ask, if it can tell him anything more about his dad. But alas, Lyra is not there. He's so excited that he walks right past the kitchen, as a non-kitchen boy would, and he passes the Dear Will letter without even seeing it.
I mean, she did leave a note. Always remember to check for notes.
Always remember to check for notes. Always remember to put notes where you think people will find them, like on his bed or on his head or somewhere near where he wakes up. That's what I say. I know she didn't want to wake him up. That's why she didn't go near him.
Yeah.
Plus, it's probably a privacy issue. At the cave, Mary is trying to communicate with the shadow particles, but it doesn't seem to want to learn to write for her or learn the I Ching box. And so, frustrated, she makes her way back to the office, and she finds, dun, 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 Detective Inspector Dion Walters waiting for her. Lyra is getting to St. Peter's, and Mary then sees her and tries to hide her. Oh, but wait, it's too late. The other Double M, Mustache Man, he catches them as she's trying to get her to the elevator, and he invites them all back to Mary's office. There's a flash of questions from D.I. Dion, and those flash of questions catch Lyra in a lie as she also unintentionally reveals to him that she is staying with Will, the very person that Dion is looking for. Mary creates a distraction for Lyra and gives her time to run out of the office, and a quadruple C.
Quadruple C?
Yeah, crashing cart's quarter chase ensues. D.I. runs after Lyra despite being told not to do so by a professor. I mean, kids these days. I mean, running in Oxford? Nobody runs in Oxford. But it's always got to be a teacher to tell you not to. And with Pan, she releases him. He takes the form of a bird, and that helps her get a little bit more distance between her and D.I. Dion. Just enough that when she does start to cramp, she ends up getting Boreal pulling up in a car, and she thinks she's got an escape route now, but D.I. Dion is closing in, so she goes straight out of the frying pan and right into the fire. Boreal gets her in the car, and they start speeding away from Boreal's underling, and now Pan's got to do some hoofing it with his wings to try and keep up with the car. Oh, my.
The stress.
Yeah, evidently Lyra did not get that whole demon separation tolerance that Mommy seems to have. She did not inherit that because as he continues to speed up, it makes Lyra really, really anxious. He continues to drive. He's asking all of these Charles Latham questions, like about trepanning and all that, until the anxiety is so much that she begs him to be let out. He stops, and she jumps out of the car, heads completely back in the other direction, trying to get closer to Pan. And then Boreal suddenly screams, "Your bag! You left your bag here." She had to take it off to remove the seatbelt, of course. He hands her the bag, and then he speeds off. And it's at that moment, as Pan's arriving back, that she realizes that he took something out of the bag, the alethiometer, and now she has no way to track him because he's in a speeding car, and she's not in that speeding car anymore. First thing, I mean, Boreal's really mean about demons. Remember what he did to that poor reporter's demon butterfly?
Oh, yes, I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. That was awful.
Yeah, so, I mean, Boreal's just He's a demon. A double D.
A double D. Okay. This whole scene was really intense, and this is, pretty much straight from the books, but I was on the edge of my seat, during the chase. My heart was pounding, and then when she gets in the car, my heart stopped racing a little bit, but there was still so much anxiety. The seatbelt alarm was going off. That was stressing me out. Pan being outside of the car was stressing me the hell out. And then she finally puts the seatbelt on, and you know how when you put the seatbelt on and it doesn't give, and so she's stuck in this loop, and I'm getting stressed out for her, feeling trapped, and then her just asking to get out of the car. And then Boreal / Latrim's reaction is just he's exasperated, but he knows he has to let her out of the car. It was just so stressful from start to finish. Oh my God. Oh, so intense. Oh, I loved it. I'm so glad I felt all those things, because I felt those reading the book, and I felt them again watching. It was perfect. I loved it. Yeah, I loved everything. Oh, there was a lot in that scene. I loved Mary helping her. All of that. She tried to do everything she could. She's like, wait, should you be talking to her without her parents? And, just kept trying to butt in and help Lyra. And then when it was just so smooth, let me go talk to you over here. And then that gesture to Lyra to get out of there. It was just yes, perfect. Go Mary. Love it.
Yay, Mary for the escape route. I love that too. I want to go back to just D.I.D. on there with this line of questioning that rattled her, that rattled poor Lyra. I mean, that line of questioning kind of rivaled his wonderful mustache. Would you not agree? Daphne also did a great job with that realization that she had betrayed Will. After we had just talked about, you go on that nice date in the botanical gardens, you make promises, and this is so junior high, and then you write this breakup note and you leave where he won't ever find it, and then she's accidentally betrayed him. And I know I'm making fun of the situation, but actually it was, Daphne did a great job. There was just this one look on her face where I was just like, oh wow.
Oh yeah, she's oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the way that it hit her emotionally later, which we can talk about in a bit. Also, Boreal, not only is he mean to demons, but boy, is he a plotter. Everything about this was a setup from the beginning, as we find out at the end of the episode. Does he really need an alethiometer? No, he doesn't really need an alethiometer. It might get him in good graces with the Magisterium if he returns it. That would be fantastic. He doesn't mind that. But he wants that knife, and this is his way to get it. He's laid every card perfectly. He gave her a place where she can come to him, where she can find him, and then he manages to steal her alethiometer, and the whole chase and everything. It was just all planned. Boreal is a master criminal. He really knows how to get what he wants. I found that very admirable. Disgusting, but admirable.
Definitely. And up to the point where he doesn't even tell Mrs. Coulter that he knows where she is until he has the alethiometer. So, that's just perfect. So now she can come and get Lyra after he gets what he wants from her.
Yeah, exactly.
So, very good planning.
Anything else on this?
No, I don't. Just that I love this whole sequence. Probably my second favorite bit of this episode because of the intense emotions I felt while watching it. Very true to the books, and great job.
Well, Lee and Hester, they arrive in town, and they check out Semirsky Hotel, and he talks to a guy who has, interesting stories. But the remark that maybe Grumman went up to the Yenisei River to become a shaman sparks interest in Lee. The bartender says that she heard something about the observatory up the mountain also. And Lee and Hester, they get on the move. They're pretty much completely oblivious to the fact that ever since he walked into the place, just about everybody's checking him out. The first thing I want to say is, was this an inside joke, Holly? The fact that the Double G, the Grumman groupie, he was so boring, and I saw that guy's hair, and it just reminded me so much of the typical Sam Elliott kind of hair. And when you think of Sam Elliott, you think of Lee Scoresby, and Lee Scoresby's overpronounced Southern accent in the movie The Golden Compass, and how bored Lin-Manuel Miranda, how bored Lee was by the conversation. I thought that was hilarious, just because I read it on that level on my own. I know that probably maybe wasn't what was intended, but I just thought it's like, you thought you knew who Lee Scoresby ought to be. You thought that Sam Elliott is a Texan. No, here's a real Texan. So that's what I was thinking when I saw that scene. I loved it.
I did not read that at all, but I like that you picked up on that. That's funny.
It's just my delusions, but that's my delusion, and I'm sticking to it.
The thing I picked up is I saw the spider demon in this scene. I missed it last week, but I saw this one for the hotel keep lady. The red spider crawling down her arm and matches her hair. I thought that was really cool. I liked it.
Oh, that is cool. That's the one. Now, see, maybe me and you can't see spiders in the same episode, because I totally missed that one. You see them when I don't, and I see them when you don't. Maybe that's what it was. I'm glad I didn't, because
we got a demon watch out for each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. I mean, how can you be so oblivious to the fact that everybody's turning their head towards you in almost a tropic way when you mention Stanislaus Grumman?
Yeah, and then everybody that's watching you walk out is like in uniform and probably not on your side, and you didn't notice that at all. It was strange.
Well, let's move on back to Will here, Will's looking around for Lyra, and he thinks that he sees her duck back into the tavern. But no, once he gets upstairs, he finds out it's Angelica, and she's checking out the tower that's up there at the top from the window. And Will notices that someone's actually up in the tower. Angelica explains as best she can. Well, she doesn't really offer that great of an explanation now, does she? But that the tower shouldn't be anybody up there, because there's no way in, there's no way out. But that the tower belongs to the guild, who are people who study philosophy and alchemy. And then to try and distract him, I believe, she brings up the whole thing about the specters again. And then she brings up the witnessing the loss of her parents to them right in front of her. Will, he offers condolences, but then he's ready to see what's going on with that tower. Despite Angelica ringing alarms again about Will's age and how he needs a plan, that's not going to stop him. So he's going to go take a look. To me, Holly, Angelica is a double L.
A double L?
She's a lousy liar.
Oh,
because
not a loyal listener.
Not a loyal listener, which is our usual double L's. When you're a loyal listener to our podcast or to any Double P podcast, you are a double L. But this is not the kind of double L that you want to be. She's a lousy liar. It's clear just by her actions, and credit to Bella Ramsey for telegraphing it, but she obviously knows who's in that tower. And I was honestly about to give Bella Ramsey a break and say, okay, maybe this isn't a tough girl role, when she talked about her parents. I did like that moment about Will being sorry for what happened to her in regards to her parents. But, you know, the lying pulls her back into the tough girl column, the tough girl role column, the TGR column for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Angelica is definitely acting shady about who's in that tower. Like ghosts, like her first go-to is ghosts. I'm like, okay. I mean, I know she's a kid, but like, come on now. And then when she's talking about the tower, she says, oh, my brother tells me. I'm like, oh, she's got a brother. I wonder where he's at. She doesn't mention him when she's talking about her parents getting, I guess, eaten by specters. So, could it be her brother? I don't know. Where is he?
Good question.
And didn't they mention a name too in the first episode? Paula mentioned a name. So,
was that name Tulio, perhaps?
I think it was Tulio.
Moving on to Mary, or back to Mary, I suppose. Mary Malone is still trying to learn dust speak, and it's going about like one would suspect. She finds negative space in terms of trying to ask questions, but not necessarily negative capability. So she goes for a stroll, and then suddenly is asked about Lyra by a fellow scholar, and is privately, as she walks away, pleased to learn that Lyra did, in fact, get away. She was asking the machine about is Lyra safe? And meanwhile, as that happens, the cave machine spits out an image, and it's the image of a serpent. So, Holly, my question to you about that scene with Mary is dust or coincidence? Is the man telling Mary to answer the question that she had been asking the machine? Or is it just coincidence that he happens to have that information? So is the machine influencing this, or is it just coincidence?
I was wondering the same thing. Feels a little dusty to me.
Because I think you could actually, just to rub the nose of somebody whose name fit and trim that I've never heard of, I think it would be just as easy to answer the question about if you were to say an assured NFL New Orleans Saints victory. That was last week.
With the second string quarterback.
So was that coincidence that it's the Saints, or is it just because the Falcons were who they were playing?
That's destiny right there.
That's destiny right there. The Falcons are destiny. Okay. Who killed the doctor at the top of the mountain? If you were to play a game of Clue with this, Holly, who would you say killed the doctor at the top of the mountain?
I think it was Lee Scoresby with the pistol.
Yeah, Lee Scoresby in the observatory with the pistol.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sorry,
Lee and Hester climbed every mountain. Oh, well, with an observatory on it. And they meet the doctor, and Lee starts asking questions about Grumman, which gets him a great deal of discomfort. The doctor confirms that Grumman has gone upriver, but he also thinks that Grumman is a heretic. And, of course, it's the doctor's demon that starts taking a rather aggressive stance there. Lee tries to excuse himself, and instead he gets shot at from behind as he's leaving and has to return fire. And he ends up killing the doctor. Again, Mr. Scoresby in the observatory with the pistol. But that upsets Lee greatly. And he even tries to save the doctor, but it's no use. The doctor's going to die and the demon disappears. And Hester even tries to reason it out with Lee that he had to do it. But he's just so tired of the magisterium and everything that happens. And as they try to leave, Lee suddenly realizes that he and the doctor were not evidently the only two people on the mountain. Instead, there's a lot of triple M's.
Triple M's?
Mountain magisterium men.
Oh.
Holly, what I've got here is that actually it should have been the first thing I expected, and probably was, but at the same time, the timing of it totally made me jump out of my chair. When that first shot rang out, I didn't even know where it was coming from because you didn't see any evidence really of the bullet. Maybe a little movement in the sheet there that was covering the door. But yeah, I was shocked by all that. On the other hand, once that started happening, I was like, oh yeah, this is the trope. Why didn't they blow Lee's hat off of his head?
Right.
Because that would have been fantastic. It would have been so tropic then. Maybe it's just, this is a family show. I guess they just didn't want to go that far. But the big question that I have, of course, is where did all those magisterium men come from?
They must have followed him up that mountain. They were all at the hotel bar having drinks and listening to him. So they just must have followed him, I guess. I don't know. It is strange. He does seem to be surrounding Lee everywhere he goes. So, I don't know. I think he's being tailed by the magisterium.
Yeah. And I thought that for me, the computer graphics for that demon was fantastic. You could almost see the lights of its eyes go out before it disintegrated. But I don't know what kind of demon that was. Could you tell me what kind of demon that was, Holly?
That's a ring-tailed lemur. It's pretty cool. I liked it too. I got really excited when I saw it. It was, a different looking demon. I like when they can do something different than like a dog or a bird, which is kind of, some of the more common ones they'll put into the scenes that have a lot of people. So it was just neat. It was like an exotic demon. I'm with you on the death scene too, how the way the light went out. I was just also very happy that the lemur was just right next to the doctor as he's laying there dying, because that's kind of how they describe it in the books, is that the demons want to be as close to their humans as possible, and like they kind of like feel warmth off each other when they're touching and close to each other. So I appreciated the fact that the demon was kind of like cozying up to him as he's laying dying, because that's where the demon would want to be. And it was just sad, and a sad reminder of what happens to your demon whenever you die, which is just disappear. And on a lighter note, to go back to your Clue reference, I had a patient in the hospital today, a nice floofy orange cat that was named Colonel Mustard.
Oh, yay.
That's today.
We hope that Colonel Mustard gets feeling better soon.
Oh, Colonel Mustard was great. It was just a sedate and shave, so he's doing great.
Okay, well then, good. Colonel Mustard, enjoy your new haircut.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary gets home, and to me, it seems like that she has forgotten that her sister, who, according to the credits, is named Zoe, her niece and nephew were going to be coming to visit. I mean, yeah, she did not forgot. That's for sure. Her visitor says that she looks knackered. She is knackered. That's not a double N.
Double in.
Not knackered.
God. Okay.
There's a discussion of the breakthroughs, though I'm not sure if it was about a lab breakthrough or some other kind of breakthrough being focused on, because, I mean, Holly, I adored the Irishness of it all, but the scene itself and the conversation between Zoe and Mary did not make any sense to me. At least maybe it will, but it didn't make any sense to me at all. And yeah, Mary definitely forgot. I mean, there's no questioning that.
Yeah, I just kind of took it as like she's tired from working in the lab. We get a little bit more information. We knew that they were kind of short on funding, but now it sounds like they might be losing the lab pretty soon if they don't get it together. So I think that's where her stress was coming from, and the breakthrough, taking a break to get a breakthrough. I liked that line, actually. So okay. I think that's all she meant. She's just trying to be a double S.
Double S?
A supportive sister.
Yeah, I like that. Later, let's stick with Mary here for a minute, because later that night, Mary, I don't know if the sister and everybody's gone home. I'm suspecting that they have, but later that night, Mary decides to do a little I Ching and ask some questions. And back at the cave, the shadow particles start activating the machine, and it's duplicating her little rows of the I Ching. And she read that after she does her little thing that she has to do to ask the question, she looks up the proper answer in the book from her little ritual, and the words do say, "To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders." Holly, that's obviously the state of mind that you have to be in to communicate with the dust, right? It's that whole negative capability thing is what that's talking about.
Yes, that's what I took from it too. I really liked that quote as well. I thought that was really neat. I'm sorry, I just remembered something from the last scene. We didn't talk about, and it's just because we're talking about Mary, I remembered, and we already saw the snake, the snake image come up. But then in the very, so we're not covering this chronologically, but my notes are chronological. So the next scene from Mary, when they show us the snake image, is the scene with the doctor and Lee, and that quote. He says to Lee before he shoots, he says, "By their fruits shall you know them, by their questions shall you see the serpent gnawing at their heart." I was just like, so, and then we have the snake demon later. Just a lot of Snick imagery going on in this episode. Sorry, I forgot to mention it earlier.
Yeah, excellent. All right, because it is essentially what Mary Malone would be doing is heresy by magisterium standards. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to Will. Will finally finds his Dear Will note, but the wording actually makes him go look for Lyra because she said she was going early and she would be back. He finds her and Pan discussing whether they should come back to Will's Oxford or not. She tells Will about the alethiometer being stolen and the man with the wonderful mustache. And then Pan realizes that they have Boreal's card. And again, all by design by Lord Boreal. so they can go and ask this Charles Lytham about the lithiometer, but there's some sirens going on, and it reminds Will that he's a wanted man, and now she is too, so they need to hide until dark. All I got to say about this is that Will seemed pretty calm. He didn't react nearly as emotionally about being betrayed as Lyra is. And maybe, they unpack a little bit more of that in the movie theater here in a minute. But Will's first reaction is just, which I really admire because I'm not capable of doing this sometimes. But his first reaction is, okay, let's fix first things first, and then we'll look at the larger picture. So that in moments of when you're on the run, that's pretty important.
Yeah, I agree. Will was pretty calm given that situation, but I was also surprised by Lyra, how calm she was. She was clearly upset, but I guess after the way she promised Will that she would never betray him in the last episode, I was maybe expecting a little bit more of emotional response from her, but we'll get back to this in our Double B section.
Double B?
Book bitchin'.
Okay. So you ready to move on to the Return of Mrs Coulter?
Let's do it.
So Mrs. Coulter finally reappears in the episode. She only had one shot. I mean, when you're the third star listed, you better appear in the episode with a speaking line rather than just a close-up. That's my opinion. Anyway, she finally reappears in the episode and takes a stroll toward the Samirsky Hotel after some weather difficulties have forced her Zeppelin to land in the town that Lee just happens to be in. So is this dust or coincidence once again? Is it Falcons or coincidence? She's told by the same bartender that Lee is being held, and she decides to pay him a visit. She tries all kinds of tactics. She tries intimidation. Instead, Lee uses it as an opportunity to find out that they actually have much in common in terms of their abusive pasts and in their concern for Lyra. But they also find that their paths in the wake of what has happened to them have been very different. And the way that they love is very different. And so Coulter tries everything. None of it works. And as the common ground between them seems to break, she's the one who ends up getting flustered and withdrawing before he even comes close to being broke. She leaves, tries to compose herself. Her golden monkey even tries to console her. And even at the same time, Hester is trying to console Lee.
Let's stop right here.
Okay.
This is the best scene of the series so far, right here. Oh my God. I was almost in tears watching it. It was incredibly... It started off funny, and then in moments, just their banter back and forth was like so quick and hilarious. It's like, who are you and what do you want? She's like, well, that's rude. And I'm like, well, did you bring food? And he's like, yes. I was laughing, and then just their back and forth was really quick. And the way Lee was like praising Asriel to like push her buttons. Oh, it's a nice touch, Lee. Coulter gets a good one in too about him killing somebody that very morning when he gets on her about like what a life is really worth to her. And I really like that Lee doesn't even defend what happened to him by claiming self-defense, because you know, we know Lee, like, this killing somebody even in self-defense really bothered him, and I'm glad, you know, he was still feeling horrible that it even happened. And I like that just him not saying anything, he's still like owning up to it. Man, just that before they even get to like the nitty gritty of the abuse. It was just, it was so good. Man, this scene does not happen in the books. So this is a lot of His Dark Material fans are probably going crazy over this scene right now. And I'm definitely one of them. And I believe, Matt, you are too, right?
Yeah, I loved this scene for a number of different reasons. First of all, I think as a showrunner, this is a brilliant stroke. Because everybody loves Ruth Coulter. Let's just call her that. Everybody loves Ruth Coulter. Or they love to hate her. And you don't have a scene with Scoresby and Coulter anywhere in this season if you're just going to go by the books. You have to put your two big stars together. And we can talk more about that in the book section. But this is a brilliant stroke just in terms of putting star power together two incredible actors who did an incredible job with really difficult material. I don't even know how to unpack a lot of that material. I was brought to tears for everybody in regards to they're talking about the abuse. I don't even know where to begin with that. But then the capper with the golden monkey reaching out to Mrs. Coulter's hand as she's just facing a wall trying to compose herself. It just destroyed me.
My life is worth 1/10 of hers. The way that he started with that phrase when he was just explaining on why he would never give her up, and then the way they just come back around to it, and it's beautiful. I like you, I cannot speak on this on the abuse stuff. I was incredibly moved by it though, for both of them, and astounded at Lee's ability to just be able to read her and realize that she's gone through the same thing. By the way, that she in that moment is abusing him, and he's just, man, it was incredibly moving. Yeah. I did not know how much I needed this until I had it, and I was like, wow, this is missing in the books. It should be in the books. Rewrite the books, Mr. Pullman. I'm just kidding. I love you. Yeah, and then how she calms herself down, and I'm still not entirely sure if Mrs. Coulter puts her hand down to reach for her monkey because she needs that compassion from the monkey, or if it's her way of saying sorry to the monkey for just Lee's calling her out on the abuse and how she probably suffered that growing up, but I'm also thinking about how she treats herself too. So that moment with the monkey and her holding hands was just it was a lot. I'm still processing it. It was just incredible. Yeah. And just so nice to see a nice moment between them, because we haven't had any of those. It feels like this might be a big change for Mrs. Coulter going forward.
Well, either way, whether it is or it isn't, the whole idea to me, and like you mentioned, about the way that in the first season we saw Mrs. Coulter abusing the golden monkey, hitting him for being separated, and for Lyra discovering the separation capability. And the whole idea of how Lee brings it up here, how that's a personality trait of some people who are abused, that they continue to abuse themselves, and that the hitting the monkey is a form of self-abuse as well, because that's the only thing that they have to associate with any kind of love from their parents. It's so horrifying, and it's so unjust. No matter how much you like or dislike Mrs. Coulter, you feel destroyed for her in seeing that, and not just her, for Lee too. I mean, Hester's having to talk to him, after it's all over too, and help him recover psychologically for the things that he brought up. She says, he hasn't talked about any of that for a long time. So that had to be Lee Scoresby's a hell of a card player. Not only can he read the eyes and tell whether everybody else is bluffing, but he had to put himself out there and lay his cards on the table in order to win that hand. And it was just, I don't know. I don't mean to get emotional about it, but I do. You should. If you're not emotional about this, I don't want to say there's something wrong with you, but because that's mean. But yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to feel. We're supposed to have such an emotional response to this. Yeah. It's incredible. And just a side note for people who maybe, even if you haven't read the books, maybe you saw the movie, maybe you're a diehard Sam Elliott fan and weren't sure about Lin-Manuel's portrayal. I think for a lot of people, this moment turned them around for sure. I was already sold. I was sold from day one, but this, just looking on Reddit after watching the episode, a lot of people who were unsure about Lee's portrayal were definitely sold after this scene. So good job to everyone involved. Writers, directors, cinematographers, actors, everything. It was beautiful. Definitely music. The actors. If Ruth Wilson doesn't get a BAFTA for this scene, and I feel like her and Lynn should both be nominated for a BAFTA for this scene. I don't know about Emmys, because that's a whole different world. But this, I mean, shame on the Academy if they don't at least nominate Ruth Wilson for this scene alone, let alone the body of work that we're sure to get this season from her.
Yes, absolutely.
So after this interrogation, this heartbreaking interrogation, Marissa gets a message from Boreal. She's trying to drink her problem away a little bit there, but the message says that Boreal knows where Lyra is. And she takes the golden monkey back to the jail. The golden monkey overtakes Scoresby's guard. Well, Scoresby's guard's demon. And she gives Scoresby the keys to free himself, saying, you got these keys off the guard. I wasn't here. She tells him that many will try to hurt Lyra because of this prophecy. And she's going to look for him too. But if he finds her first, then he needs to protect her. And after she leaves, Lee gets to his feet. Hester's a little concerned about his ability to walk. He does have a limp on him as we see him getting out of the jail, going across the docks. He's made a plan. They can't get to the balloon. They've got to get on a boat and head up the Yenisei River because from two different sources, he's got it confirmed that Grumman is somewhere up the Yenisei River, perhaps being a shaman, perhaps not, but either way, it's clear that they need to get upriver to try and find him. So anything else about that?
Yeah, just the fact that Coulter, when she frees Lee and she says, if you find her, she doesn't say, bring her back to me. She doesn't say, return her to me. She says, keep her safe. So she just wants Lyra to be safe at this point. She doesn't even, her custody of Lyra isn't as important as keeping her safe. And I think that's a lot of growth right there, just from the first season where she just kept trying to get her hands on her. So now she knows that she's working for the Magisterium who wants to find her, and she doesn't even want the Magisterium to find her. So she's down with whatever as long as Lyra is safe. And I love that. I love that. I love this growth from Mrs. Coulter. Yay. She loves Lyra, and she's really trying to be a good mom and doing whatever she has to do.
Yeah.
To do it.
It helps when you look back on the prior two episodes. To me, it helps look at her obsessiveness. I think that this change has been coming for a little bit, and her obsessiveness about Lyra wasn't just changed by her talk with Lee, even though this is the first time she's acted on it. But she's been obsessed with Lyra for a little while now. So, and maybe part of that obsession is to keep her safe. Once she found out about a prophecy regarding Lyra and how in the second episode, how dangerous the Magisterium really is, possibly to Lyra, then I think this has been a time coming. But this is a complete 180 from the way we perceived Mrs. Coulter in the first season, for sure.
Yes. On a somewhat lighter note, the poor monkey really seems to enjoy just beating up demons. Dragging
it around after they leave, dragging the snake for a little while.
And then even previously in the scene with Lee and Mrs. Coulter, when Mrs. Coulter kind of like surrenders, the monkey's looking at her like, oh man, and then throws Hester like grudgingly, like, I wasn't done playing with this demon. I'm gonna throw her angrily, and then does the same thing does a double S.
Double S?
A Snick slam.
Oh.
It's bad. It's bad.
Well, it was about all of the double H that I could tolerate.
Double H?
Hester harassment.
Yep, Hester harassment. Okay.
So let's go back to Will and Lyra and wrap this episode up, because Will and Lyra, they end up going to the movies to hide. Paddington Bear should suffice to cheer them up. Yeah? Not so much. After Lyra becomes obsessed with popcorn, for the same reasons that we all become obsessed with popcorn. We hate it, but we can't stop eating it.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, Lyra and Will discuss Roger and her feelings about betraying him, and emphasizing, the fact that she also feels very bad for her betrayal of Will. But as they hash all that out, Pan is now just basically a Paddington Bear fan. I think that Pan sees himself as Paddington Bear.
Aw, that's so cute. I loved that. I loved the moment where you could tell Lyra stops thinking about the conversation they were having, and she like looks up, and then her eyes just get big as she is just like suddenly into what she's watching, and then Pan is peeking out. Oh, it was so adorable. I loved it. I loved that. That was so cute. I have a lot of gripes about this scene as a person who goes to the cinema. I wouldn't say gripes. First of all, okay, not all gripes. First of all, the way Lyra eats popcorn, just fair warning to anybody who is lucky enough to take me to the movies. This is how I eat popcorn. I'm sorry. If we even ever go to the movies again. But yeah, I'm like fistfuls, shove it in my mouth kind of popcorn eater. Sorry if that bothers y'all. It's disgusting, but I can't stop. I love that. That made me laugh. Just them talking during the movie was stressing me out, though. And then after they were done talking and, Lyra's enjoying the film and Will's looking at his phone, it gave me a lot of anxiety. I wanted to yell at both of them. I did not like that. So... Okay, now that I'm done with my cinema scolding, Wait,
that's a double S.
No, it's not. It's not.
Oh, no, I guess it's not.
Good try. I did like this exchange. I like this exchange a lot. She finally opens up to Will about what had happened to her and the horrible things she's been through, how she lost her best friend, and all she wants to do is to apologize to Roger. That's all she wants. And that's so sad. And so sweet. I almost cried. I loved it.
One of the things getting to Pan that I loved was just the whole Paddington Bear when it was kind of went through that wall and was in a brand new world, and the way that Pan felt about that. I loved the symbolism of that because here these children are going through the exact same thing. And I don't think that score was from Balfe. I think that was actually from the movie. Which was even more wonderful that they got the rights for the movie to, not just to show it, but also to play the score.
And I can't imagine what other movie I would have pictured them watching, but I haven't even seen this movie. I have not seen Paddington. I know about Paddington, but I've never seen the movie, either one of them. I'm going to watch it now, though, so I'm looking forward to it.
I hope you're not disappointed. I'll tell you who is disappointed.
Who?
That's Will and Lyra, because they go to Charles Latham's home to confront him about the alethiometer. And Boreal comes to the door, waiting for either of them to recognize him, I guess. But he invites them in. They pose as Lizzie and Mark, asking for the alethiometer back, but Boreal, he manages to produce it. He calls them out on their identities, and then... conveniently, Lyra finally remembers him from the party. He tells them that he knows that they found Chitagaze, and he wants a knife from the Torre degli Angeli, and that if they get it for him, he will give the alethiometer back. Not really. He'll probably just give it back up to the magisterium. That keeps him in their good graces. But they agree to do it. Boreal, the master plan has succeeded. He's getting everything he wants. He's going to have all of the presents by the end. He's going to be able to present Lyra to Mrs. Coulter. He's going to, to stay in her good graces. He's going to present the alethiometer back to the magisterium to stay in their good graces. And he's just not going to mention the knife so that he can keep it for himself. That's what I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. He's really going to trade with some kids. Like he said, it's going to be, some kids' word against the collectors, like he definitely has the upper hand in all of this.
Well, they just don't want any involvement with the police at all, given Will's murder investigation.
Well, definitely. But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's almost no way that Boreal can lose in this situation. He either gets to keep the alethiometer, which is going to hurt Lyra, and not end up with the knife.
This is the one thing that I'm going to nitpick. Because you and I, at the beginning of this season, we wondered, okay, who's going to recognize Boreal? I had eliminated Lyra as being able to finally figure out who the heck he was because she was nowhere near him at that party. There was at no point from the time that he came in and she left, in between there, that she was less than 2 rooms away from him. So the fact that she remembers him at all, I understand that this is a book thing and it stays true to the text, which we can talk about here since it does. But the way it was set up in the television show, should have been done just a little bit better to make that line from Lyra about the party pay off to me. And that bothered me. It did, because to me, I can talk more about it in the Double B.
Double B.
The book bitching section. But it just really bothered me. It didn't seem... I think as a TV viewer, other than Lyra just saying the party, there's no way to connect how she would recognize him. And to me, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, you're right. This whole bit was wonky. I think for me, my nitpick about this scene is that I think they missed an opportunity for the Snick demon reveal. Like, why not? If you're gonna admit to Lyra that you know her from her world, why not like give a little slip of some snake coming out of like the arm sleeve or whatever, and like really just kind of hit it home for her? Like, oh, this guy is from my world. And I don't know why they would need to continue to hide, at least from the kids, which world he is from, you know? So, I don't know. It doesn't really matter at this point. I just thought I thought they just missed an opportunity there to, like, show the snake and at least make it more impactful for Lyra. And I'm trying to remember if Will has seen him too, and I feel like he has. And the way that Boreal was like staring at Will when they were at the door,
and the way Will was staring back and didn't, and it was like for a second there, I thought Will was going to grab her and tell her to run, and then he was just going to pull him in. But once Lyra's in, I guess he can't do anything else then because she goes in first. But there was an awful lot of time where they were just looking at each other, where you would think, if either one of these kids do recognize him, they should have recognized him right there.
Absolutely. I don't know. What'd you think about his house?
Oh, God, I love that house.
It seemed cool. It did not seem very like lived in. Like, I just would have liked to seen like a throw blanket or something, like just to be able to tell that he actually lived there.
Man. When you've got an astronaut suit in your place, you don't need a throw blanket. You've got
it looks
throw blanket times 10 with an astronaut
It looks cold in there, okay? It just looks cold in there, like a museum is cold, you know? I don't know. There's just something like a cup of tea on a table, just something that says like, oh, a dude lives here, and not just like this is a museum and a house, you know?
No, it's a perfect bachelor pad. Look at all my stuff. That's what a bachelor does.
I guess you're right.
You know what I'm also right about?
3 words?
I'm always right about the fact that you hate 3 words.
Yeah, okay.
So let's move on to that. Holly?
Matthew?
If you had to describe this episode in 3 words, how would you do so?
It's not really an episode descriptor. It's just my feeling after. It kind of the way it ended. I'm ready to get that knife. Get the knife. Those are my 3 words for the episode. We gotta get the knife.
I think that is excellent, but it is far inferior to mine, which is a triple S.
A triple S.
Soul shifting scenes.
Aww.
I mean, we talked about that scene with Lee and Mrs. Coulter, of course. That's one of them. It just, wow. That just totally blew me away, the pain and everything. But that wasn't the only one. The triumph that I felt for Mary for reaching out and making contact, actual contact with the shadow particles, even though she may not realize it yet. That's a real moment of victory for her. And the fact that in the last episode, Lyra said, you're important to this, and that she is pursuing it. And now she has some confirmation that the I Ching thing is going to work. She just has to figure out how to make it work with the machine. It looks like the machine's already doing some homework. So I can't wait to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I'm excited for Mary to go back to work and see all the stuff that happened while she was at home playing with sticks.
Let's get to these polls that we did last week that I didn't get snuck into the Second Look podcast. The main polls were regarding our What's Worse questions from last week. The first one was Holly's What's Worse, a His Dark Materials poll What's worse, talking to stranger collectors or not realizing you're talking to someone from your own world? It's a good question. We had 1,500 votes on the 100 Twitter. You can check our poll results and see what I mean by being on the 100 Twitter. But 1,500 votes, 73.3% chose not recognizing Boreal or someone from your own world. So I think Holly argued the other point, so I won that one. And then the other poll for the question that I asked, I got sorely beat on. That question was, what's worse, telling someone how to dress or ruining a carpet by kicking over tea purposefully? Holly, of course, argued for telling Lyra how to dress and won that 78.6% as far as that poll goes. Remember, you can always find these polls at the Dust Podcast. We tried to pin them to the top of the profile page so you don't have to go hunting for them. It's time for a game that Holly hates less. And that's What's Worse, where we pick a couple things out of the episode. We ask the question. The other person gets their pick of which one that they prefer as to which one's worse. And then the other person has to argue the other point. Holly, what's your what's worse kind of question?
Okay. What is the worst kind of adult? The kind of adult that helps a child escape from the police, even if the child is innocent, but the police are chasing them and you're going to help them escape, or feeding children unhealthy snacks.
Ooh. I get to I get to choose, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I'm going to go for feeding unhealthy snacks to a child. There's no crime worse. You're condemning them for life. Perhaps you're inciting habits that will make their life last shorter. I think feeding unhealthy snacks to a child is worse than helping a child escape for the police.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, what if the police were trying to help this child? As for their well-being, they're trying to keep them safe. They protect and serve. That's what the police do. Why did I put myself in this position where I'm arguing for police? I am going to surrender now. Bye.
Folks, if you have a better argument as to why it's worse for helping a child escape the police, then feel free to tweet at the Dust Podcast, or you can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call 314-269-0421. And don't forget that we will have this up on a poll. You can always respond to the poll with your tweets as well. Again, that's the Dust Podcast on Twitter. I have actually two, but I'm only going to make us argue one, Holly, and then we'll just put the other one up to the audience to vote on completely. So the one that I'm choosing out of my two is, what's worse, going against Pan's advice or shutting a bag on him to shut him up?
Okay, for this one, I'm going to say it is worse to go against Pan's advice because he's talking sense and everything he said has been right. If Lyra just would have listened to him, she wouldn't have gotten the alethiometer stolen. And that's that. You know, they'd be fine right now. They wouldn't be in this situation where they'd have to go and steal a knife from somebody in a tower that they can't get into. They would just have the alethiometer. They could ask the questions, get the answers, find Will's dad, and get on out of there.
That's an excellent argument, but it is completely wrong.
Okay.
Because has anybody asked Pan if he has claustrophobia? Is this not abuse to a Pan? Will Pan grow up to be an abusive Pan the same way that Mrs. Coulter did? I think that these are horrifying psychological traumas that you cannot put Pan on. You can fix the fact that an alethiometer is missing. You can fix whether to get a knife or not. The damage you've done to Pan is irrefutable, and it's disgusting.
You can fix shutting the bag up and telling Pan to shut up when he gets to say, I told you so, for not listening to him in the first place.
But what's happened to Pan, though? I mean, is that going to fix it for Pan? That's what I'm saying. The guy is absolutely going to just one day just waylay on Lyra. I have spoken.
With I told you so's. Because they didn't listen to Pan.
Clearly, we are not going to come to an agreement about this. I'm not going to convince Holly. She is not going to convince me. So we need you to look at the polls. We'll have them pinned to the top of the Twitter page in a whole thread. So click on the one at the pin to the page and just vote on all of them. And which is worse, going against Pan's advice or shutting the bag so as to shut Pan up? I have another one, just a bonus one. We're not going to argue it because, I've already made my argument in the course of critiquing this scene. But which is worse, not recognizing Boreal or not recognizing Boreal because there was no possible way that you could when he was 2 rooms away? You vote on that poll, and we'll reveal the results in a future podcast. We have some feedback, not about those polls, obviously, but we do have some feedback, some early returns regarding this episode from some of our fans in the UK. And Holly, you want to read Mylene's first tweet here?
Yes. She says, visually stunning. Loved how faithful a big part of the episode was and how the power of that new scene, fabulous. Yes. Agree. 100%. That's basically my review of the episode. Great tweet.
That's at Mile with a Y _L_V. Thank you very much for your tweet. What about Gracie? Holly, what did she say?
At Gracie_Matheson said, loved Lee's bit, done so well. Lin is great as him. Also agreeing with what I said earlier about people coming to Lin-Manuel and accepting him as our Lee Scoresby.
So I don't have any real further feedback directly to us, but I did do a little bit of plagiarizing from Twitter because I saw this from our friend Laura Silvertongue, who's at Laws, that's LAUZ 0908, in a response to a tweet from Jack Thorne regarding the Coulter Scoresby scene. And Laura Silvertongue said this: Kay, here's the genius of this scene. We don't think of Scoresby and Coulter in terms of each other. They've never shared a scene before. If we were to compare them before this scene, there wouldn't be much to say except the assumption that they're on different ideological sides. Then in this scene, Lee shares some of his distant past, recognizing that she understands it. So we have a point of similarity. They both come from childhoods containing some kind of abuse. Lee observes that it makes them both hard as nails and difficult to break down. But then we get to think about their responses to that trauma. On the superficial level, we can see some shared tactics. Both have, over the years, distanced themselves from the rest of humanity by living life on the move and avoiding close personal relationships. It's got to be telling that Lee's best friend is Yorick. That's a lovely relationship, but it's not human. They don't need each other in the same way that most friends do. And Marissa's only sort of friendship is her mutually manipulative relationship with Boreal. But then we get to see the differences between them. Lee can get on with people. He has acquaintances and drinking buddies. He doesn't get close to people, but he doesn't hate them. Whereas Marissa can't stand people and has gone out of her way to be cruel. And then you have the most important difference of all, their relationships with their demons, that is to say, themselves. And it's 2 very different trauma responses that tell you a huge amount about both characters. Hester is a huge comfort to Lee. They're the human-demon relationship we see and understand best, except for Lyra and Pan. Hester is a constant source of sense and reassurance and strength for Lee, as in the lovely moment they share after Coulter's interrogation. Whereas we know Mrs. Coulter is cruel and dismissive of the golden monkey. Lee turns to his demon to get him through troubles, whereas Marissa pretends she has no need of hers. It says a huge amount about their sense of self and their coping techniques. And then, cherry on the icing on the cake, you give us their greatest similarity. Both have broken their rule against loving people for Lyra, and as a result, are now feeling vulnerable in ways they've spent their lives trying to avoid. Broken heart. Just truly beautiful work. And that is actually all we're going to put in this podcast as a review for this episode. That's all we need. We're just going to plagiarize Laura Silvertongue. Thank you at Laws0908 for letting me steal that. You can sue me later. There won't be any suing done here, but there was new music for the shaman in this episode. We're going to cover that in the Second Look podcast, but we're going to cover that later this week. Right now, it's time for Triple M.
Triple M?
Mary Malone music. If for some reason you don't like the musical analysis, skip ahead 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Or if you're on YouTube, no worries, we'll be back in just a few seconds because I don't include these in the YouTube. So folks, we love it when you join us to listen to us talk about the series, but we definitely want to hear from you what your thoughts were about this episode. Please send tweets to @TheDustPodcast. Vote on the polls there. Send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com. Call 314-269-0421 and leave a voicemail. Don't forget that we're part of the Double P family as well. If you ever want to complain about my bad doubles, like Holly does every other time I do one, then just simply tweet to @theword_double, the letters PHQ on Twitter, or you can go to facebook.com/theword_double, the letters PHQ. You can also leave comments on the YouTubes that we put up, or any YouTube that Double P Media puts up. Search for Double P Media on YouTube, and be sure to check out their podcast on The Mandalorian from Disney Plus as well while you're there. It's called the Parsec Passion Podcast. You can definitely find it wherever you get your podcasts. That's enough about that. Holly, if people want to commiserate with you about how terrible my doubles are, how do they do so?
You can find me on Twitter @HuntPants. That's it. That's the handle.
Yep, that's weird. And you can find me @Musical Concepts on Twitter as well, which is weird in its own way. We've got a book reader section coming up for book readers only, unless you want to be spoiled about things. So definitely stick around for that if you are a book reader. We will see you next time on
The Dust Podcast.
Tweet the podcast @TheDustPodcast. Send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com or call 314-269-0421. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
So you're still here. That means you're a book reader, right? No? You're a person who wants to be spoiled about the television show, right? No? Well, then why are you here? This is your last chance if you don't want to be spoiled about anything or hear about differences between book and show. 3, 2, 1, go away. Holly, go!
Oh my God, did they ruin the Grumman reveal? Oh my God. I don't know. Did they ruin it? Did they ruin it?
You're asking me?
I'm asking whoever is still here and listening and knows what I'm talking about. So we know Andrew Scott, and then we saw him calling to Lee from, Lyra's world, calling to Lee. Lee's going to him. They didn't say who he was, although I realize you kind of gave it away, because if the music was called The Shaman, we know that Stanislaus Grumman is a shaman. So maybe that gave it away. I don't know. This felt wonky to me. I wish they would have kept this part a secret a little bit better. It didn't seem like they really tried to. I don't know. What do you think?
To be honest, I think that anybody who was excited for Andrew Scott, the second that they heard his voice, they were spoiled.
It didn't really sound that much like Andrew Scott to me. I don't know. It looked like him. You could see under his hood. You can tell it's him. The only thing they don't do is name who that is in the scene. So, yeah, it just seemed weird. I just wish we wouldn't have seen him until Lee actually sees him. So then it like hits hard, like, oh my God, Lee has been looking for this dude the whole time and it's Will's dad. Because that's kind of the only way they could like make this like a surprise. And I feel like they maybe botched it a little bit. I don't want to say anything bad about the show. I love the show. I love Andrew Scott. I was begging for Andrew Scott. Now I'm like, why did they give us Andrew Scott this way? I don't mean to be that person. I just, I don't know, y'all. I don't know what to think. I was just like, I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. And I don't think Matt probably edited all my stuff because I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to ruin it for people who didn't pick it up, but it seemed like they might have done it themselves a little bit. We're going to see him for real next week though. Like for real. And I can't wait. I'm still very excited. So,
yeah. Well, I think that the problem always ends up, as far as people, whether they be spoiled from a TV perspective or not, it always starts at the trailers. And when you see shots that you can see Andrew Scott's face and you can see those hand tattoos, then when you see these hand tattoos holding the ring, you know exactly who it is. So it's always the marketing people that end up screwing it up for everybody. That happened a lot with Game of Thrones too.
The ring made me so sad. Oh my God. And then that's what I'm really happy that we got this scene with Lee in this episode, because in a couple of episodes he's unless they change something, he's gonna die. He's gonna die protecting John Perry. And that makes me really sad. And that's his mom's ring. How did John Perry get his mom's ring? Oh, it's a beautiful ring. Oh my God, it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
so
you speak about that, and that's exactly why another reason why I said it in the TV section, that it's this scene between Coulter and Lee was a brilliant stroke on the showrunner's part, because you know what's going to happen to Lee at the end of this. You know that unless Lin appears as a ghost or something in season 3, that has to happen, right? Him and John Perry. Yeah, but
that does happen. So
I mean, if they choose to do that, again, we don't know what they're planning for in terms of this third book, how they're going to do it.
They better do it. I feel like they have to. It's part of they are kind of holding off the specters and stuff once they get out. Like they're doing their part. Even when they're dead, they're doing their part.
But as a showrunner, you're going to see a whole hiatus here where people are still going to be talking about that Lee Scoresby and that Mrs. Coulter scene.
Yeah. And
now a TV-only audience is going to think, well, Lee's dead. We're never going to see him again. Thank goodness they did that scene. So I just think it was a brilliant stroke on the showrunner's part to do that.
You're absolutely right.
What else you got for me?
I got a lot. Well, I say a lot. It's kind of a lot. Okay. The scene where the alethiometer was stolen. I think part of my anxiety was just like, how are they going to do it? So when she gets in the car immediately, like I'm feeling everything that she's feeling, all the stress, and like everything I said earlier was true. But I'm also watching Boreal to see like where his hands are. I know the bag's in the back seat with her. I'm like, how's he gonna get this alethiometer out? And then she gets out the car and I'm like, oh my God, did it happen? Does she have the bag? And then he's like, wait, and he does the bag out the window and I'm like, oh my God, that was so smooth. Perfect, loved it. Perfect. It was so great.
He's a master planner.
Yes. So I just appreciated everything about that whole chase scene, down to the mechanics of how he was going to actually steal the alethiometer. It was great. I was literally yelling. I was watching it and I was yelling at how smooth it was and how perfect it was. I was glad I did not watch with my roommate this week. She's probably waiting for me to finish recording so we can watch it together, but I'm glad she didn't, because she would have seen me have like really big reactions to things that weren't that huge in the grand scheme of things. But I was very excited.
Yeah, just one other comment about that whole Boreal trick there. I didn't make this into TV podcast, so here's a bonus just TV look for you book readers. I honestly, at first, I did not recognize that seatbelt alarm. I honestly thought that was part of Lauren Baugh's score until Boreal said seatbelt, and then she clicked it in and it stopped. I was like,
Same.
oh, what a cool card. It has a musical seatbelt alarm. Lovely.
All of that was just seamless. Best action like type scene of the episode for sure. Oh man, I loved it. I love this episode so much. Okay, I'm about to just up my ranking to a 10. No, I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna do that. So instead, tell me something else that you want to talk about book-wise.
Okay, another scene on a bench. Now I know this is probably not the bench that we spoke of last time because we know that's in the Botanic Gardens from the book. But it just had me thinking of like, oh, this is tricky that they're doing this. Like, it's another bench. They're having another important conversation. The location of this bench is pretty important, at least for Will, because it's right near his window. Now, whether Lyra has a bench like this in the same location in her world is a question. I'm not really worried that there's multiple benches to choose from for the very last scene of the series, but I just thought it was funny that they threw in another bench scene. And now I'm going to be on bench watch for 2020 and 2021 until season 3 is with us. So just funny.
Like the Jon Snow hair watch? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, sort of. And then just to nitpick this scene a little further, I kind of went into this a little bit, but I thought both of their reactions would be bigger. And I think I've read these books several times, but I've also listened to them. And when you listen to them, it's the radio play version. So every Pullman narrates, and then every character has a voice actor that goes with it. So it's really cool. If you don't like reading, but you like listening to books, highly recommend the radio play version. It's on Audible. Anyway, I think I was expecting bigger reactions from them from this scene because of how the audiobook version of that scene plays, where Will is angry and Lyra is hysterical for betraying him. So this felt a little bit more subdued. And I think with the way the scene was going, it makes sense. It's just a little, just something I can be nitpicky about. But yeah, I just thought she would feel a lot more guilty for outing him than she appears to in the way they portrayed it. So that's really all I have to say about that.
I've got a comment. I want to backtrack just a little bit. What if they do a whole bunch of binge? Maybe if every important scene, this would be a great way to just make it play into the story. If every important scene that Will and Lyra have in regard to their feelings happen at a bench, then that would be incentive to figure out a bench that they would want to meet at. And thus, since the bench at the Botanical Garden was the first one, that's the one they choose.
Yes, and I think that's the one they choose because they established that they have that place in both worlds.
Yeah.
And that was the point, was so they could be in the same spot, but in their own worlds, like on the same day and the same time.
Agreed. What else you got for me?
Lots of serpent foreshadowing in this episode. I kind of touched on it, but like the Garden of Eden references are like coming hard and heavy now. Mary Malone had 2. If you think about it, with the cave shows her as like the snake symbol for her. And then the way she offered the cracker cookie thing to her niece, like, I promise it's bad for you. It's just like, it's tempting. It's tempting. So I liked that. That might be mostly it. Just heavy serpent stuff for this episode. We're still kind of dancing around Lyra is Eve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it's just a tribute to how much Lauren is into the books because Mary Malone's theme on his season 2 musical anthology, the title of that piece is Play the Serpent.
Okay.
So that makes great sense.
I have 2 more points. I had a sub point on one of those. So I'm going to go back to it again. But Lyra wants to talk to Roger and apologize is the whole main plot point of the 3rd book.
Land of the Dead!
They literally go to the land of the dead so she can do exactly what she said she wanted to do in this very episode. And I wanted to cry at the movies with them. Ugh. Broke my heart. Oh my God. I'm so glad they're doing this. I think maybe if some people are getting tired of Lyra talking about Roger, I can kind of understand by now because he has been getting a lot of mentions from her. But the fact that she said that, okay, good. You can not talk about Roger for a little while if y'all don't want to. That's okay. Oh, man. It was so good. I'm so glad they put that in there. And on top of that, while we're in the movie theater, another nit to pick, and it's just, again, Lyra not emoting as much in the show as I kind of hoped she would. So in the book, when they're watching the movie, I don't remember which movie it is in the book or if they even say, but Lyra is really into it, like to the point where she's one of these
scream at the screen kind of fans?
Obnoxious, kind of moviegoers where they laugh like really hard and really loud at all the jokes, and I don't know how most people feel about those types of people. If it's like too loud laughing and it's distracting and taking away, I can't hear, I don't like it, but I do like that people enjoy things that much. So just kind of didn't see that from her, but it also maybe wouldn't have fit after the conversation they just had. And I think they did do a good job of showing Lyra like, oh, this is a movie? Whoa. And then just kind of like get lost in it. But I just think it's really cute in the books. She gets so excited. She loves the popcorn. She loves the Coke. And they like watch the movie again, like right after, because she was so excited and they also needed to kill more time. I just thought that was really endearing in the book and gets left out of the show, but that's okay. Just a book nit to pick.
Do you think they just transferred that to Pan a little bit? Maybe Pan was laughing obnoxiously and all that at the rest of the film.
No, I didn't hear him laughing, but it was really cute.
No, but I mean, maybe he was. Maybe he did. After the scene cut away, maybe Pan was because Pan was really digging the movie. I also love the fact that here you have this thing that Pan identifies with, going off on its own adventure, and the way that Pan decides to do that in later books, right?
Interesting point from someone who hasn't even read The Secret Commonwealth. So.
Hey, I'm good with Wiki.
Okay, so you cheated. Got it. My last point is Tulio's in the tower, and I think she all but gave that away in this episode. So, yeah. Yeah, definitely Tulio in the tower up there. It's a double T. Double T. A Tulio tower. Oh, God. There it is. Okay. All right. Well, folks, that's it for the book section. Thanks for sticking around. If you're a TV person who just wanted to be spoiled, you got spoiled aplenty. And if you're a book reader, well, we had some thoughts for you. Holly, if people want to talk to you about the books, how do they do that? Find me on Twitter at HuntPants. We can talk about the books. You cannot have my books. We're not giving away my books. We're totally giving away her books. Don't do it. Be sure to leave a written review wherever you get your podcast. We really appreciate it. Even if it's just blasting me for being a double freak, that's fine too. What you say is important to us, and I will taper the doubles back just as soon as somebody tells me to. You can contact me personally if you wish to just do it that way by tweeting to @musicalconcepts, and we will see you next time on The Dust Podcast.